Mighty fine good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I want to welcome you to the first of a three-part series that we're putting on promoting automation within the manufacturing sector. So my name is Cale Harbor. I'm with Advanced Control Solutions and Automation. We are part of the Applied Industrial Technologies Automation Group. And together with our sister companies, Olympus Controls and Gibson Engineering, we want to welcome you to our series this afternoon and our final finale grand master of the day, Mr. Samuel Bouchard. Sam is the CEO of Robotique and the author of the book Lean Robotics. So Sam was co-founder of the Robotique company, and with a great passion to be able to empower manufacturing for the repetitive tasks, to be able to help alleviate those, to allow both the worker and the factory to be able to do more at a more sophisticated, higher level of existence. If you've not had the chance to check out the book Lean Robotics yet, I would definitely highly recommend that. It's a guide to making the robots work in your factory and to be able to get up and running faster and more efficiently on your first robotics project. So Sam's going to be talking to us this afternoon about collaborative robotics. We are going to be monitoring the chat room. So during the event, if you have questions, you want something that Sam to be able to answer for you, please post it. And we're going to field as many as we can at the end of the session. We're also recording this event, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel afterwards in case you would like to rewatch or share with anyone else. So I think that takes care of the housekeeping work, Sam. I'm going to turn the event over to you, and we're pleased to introduce you this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invite, and thanks for the intro, Cal. So let me share my screen, and I'm gonna start the presentation. Cal, can you confirm that you see my my presentation right now?
Yes, your screen is coming in.
Very good, very good. So the theme of the presentation today is automate to elevate. And what I mean by elevate, you're gonna find out is not only elevate the factory, but elevate also the people in your factory, because that's really the starting point. Obviously, the talk of the town for the last year has been the COVID and how it impacted everybody's lives and everybody's business, including manufacturing, who's had their fair of challenge. But the reality is that as soon as we get over this, and even right now, these are a lot of headlines that are in the past few months. So they were not posted several years ago. They're still in the midst of the COVID pandemic. It's still very challenging to find the labor. And it comes obviously from, there's a groundswell because of the demography, because also of the young people who don't necessarily like to work and do repetitive tasks in factories. And the result of this, if you're a manufacturing professional, you probably have a "we're hiring" sign either on the factory wall outside if you're close to the highway, or you're posting jobs everywhere. And obviously it's a lot of work because you're hiring, but you got the whole HR team interviewing, you're onboarding, you're managing, you're coaching, you're doing a lot of stuff to make sure that you can keep the team intact and keep the team fully functional. The reality is that all of these things that you're doing, it's really dragging you toward the objective and the things that you need to do as a manufacturing professional. So we're a manufacturer just like you. We make our products. So we have also our manufacturers, and our director of manufacturing, his goal is quality, delivery, and cost all the time. And he's also has some important project to bring the manufacturing floor and the team to make it a competitive advantage for us. And that's probably the same thing as you do. So what we want to do definitely is remove those barriers and remove those constraints, or those remove that friction that all the labor challenges bring to you. And the other thing that we want to do, obviously, is to make jobs more fulfilling for the people in the factory. So that's a great historical picture from a Ford factory. You might have seen it. And obviously, this was a great milestone in American manufacturing. But I believe that these days are gone. And considering that how challenging it is to find people, we really got to get the best out of them and really offer them opportunities to grow and to deliver as much value as possible to the business. So in other words, we shouldn't give jobs that are for robots for humans, and vice versa. We should definitely have robots for robots' job, and we should definitely have humans for a human's job. So that idea of automate to elevate is how can we automate with cobots to elevate your workforce and at the same time, obviously, elevate your business. So by this time, if you've been to earlier presentation in the event, I'm assuming that you have a good understanding of cobots. So these are industrial robots that are easy to use, easy to deploy, and that can coexist with humans. The mindset around cobots is different than the mindset with industrial robots. So you're not doing a big project, you're not automating the full line. You're really doing more of a bottom-up approach. So it's more about a continuous improvement automation. So it's not an ERP transplant in your factory. It's more one of the arm of the octopus where you say you don't need to change the core. You can just go station by station and make one station work, then improve it, then move to the next, etc. So it's really well aligned with the continuous improvement mindset. It is fast to deploy because of the technology that is simple. And typically the payback, what we hear from the customers is always in the same range. It's going to be between 6 to 18 months, depending on the complexity, the labor cost, the number of shifts, etc. So these are all good things you can do with cobots to improve the business. And obviously it scales when you bring more cobots to the factory floor. The other interesting thing about cobots is that they can really be used to elevate your workforce. So while the message at the beginning of the robotics industry was reducing the workforce, today that's not the message. Today the reality, as I discussed in the opening slide, is that it is difficult to find enough people to keep the factory running. And you really want to have these people provide as much value as possible. And you will probably have a great team already in place. And what you want to do is do more with the team already there. So how can you augment the workforce with cobots? And the great thing about cobots is that it's an innovative technology. So it is interesting for younger people. It's a good technology to put your hands on. It is accessible. It is, you don't need a 3-year university degree to be able to program it. So it's a great tool not only to drive business results, but also to develop your people, which in turn is going to bring even more results in the future. So that's the whole idea of automate to elevate. So what we do at Robotique is tools and sensors and applications. So our goal is really to have flexible, easy to deploy cobot applications. So you see a few examples here of what we do. So some grippers, camera, force sensors, always coming with a software interface. So that's really the background. So we founded the company 13 years ago, and that was we started with. So we started with plug and play components, components that are flexible and that are easy to deploy. And where we've been heading in the past few years is really becoming more and more application centric. So we went from doing plug and play components to combining these components to do some application kits. So this is an example of a kit that's been designed specifically for CNC machine tending. And it also comes with some application specific software. And the last iteration is really getting closer to a complete work cell where you buy the Robotique solution, you add the robot, and then you pretty much have a self-contained work cell. So that's really the direction, the roadmap of the company. And what we want to do is help you go from the cobot to the complete cobot application. So when I say application is everything that you need around the cobot to make the cobot work in the factory. So that means the interface with the machine, the tooling, the sensors, the part feeding, the programming, etc. So all of our products, even though they're not the complete cell, they are always made to simplify the whole process to go from the cobot to the cobot application. Examples of applications that our products are used in, pick and place. So if you want to tie 2 islands of automation, for instance, in the factory, bring one part from one station to another. Simple assembly. Machine tending is a very common application. It can be CNC, but it can be any other type of machines. Some finishing task using the force sensing. And the most recent product is the palletizing, where we combine the tooling, the 7th axis, but also an application software where you can really talk the application language. You don't need to go very in-depth in terms of learning the robot language. You can just define the box sizes, the patterns, and the pallet size, and the programming is generated automatically. Our customers are manufacturers. So here are a few. The link there is small, but if you go on our website, you can find a lot of case studies, a lot of different companies, different industries, different applications. But in the end, it's always the same story. It's about doing more with less, doing more with the people they already have. And that's an example that's very interesting, Sennheiser, where in pretty much all of our case studies, we hear the managers and how it improves the factory, but we also hear the automation engineer and the operator and talk how positively their solution impacted their day-to-day work. So to the rest of the presentation, I'm going to share with you a 5-step guideline on how to automate and elevate. So the first step is really assemble a team. So what we want to do, the end goal, obviously, in the short term, it is to have a working automated solution. But the longer term is really to elevate the workforce so they can develop, but they can also bring more value to the business. So it really starts with the team, scoping the problem, really understanding well the problem before jumping to designing the solution, integrating the solution, and then moving into operation with the training in between. So it is a short presentation, but what I'll give is some of the learnings that we've had with our various customers and partners. So some good tips or best practices for these different steps. Starting with assembling the team. So to have a successful robotic cell deployment, you need to combine 3 skill sets. The first one is the knowledge of your manufacturing process. The great news is that it is your core expertise, so you can really build on this. And what you need to add is robotic skills and robotics project management skills. So the robotic skills is more the hardcore engineering skills, like doing some system design, doing the programming, and the interfacing between the machines, etc. And the project management skill is how to go from I have an idea, I want to put a robot there, to have a working productive robot there. So these 2 blue skill sets, they might be new for you, but with the simplicity that comes with Cobots and the support that you have with the local partners in the Allied group, these are definitely skill sets that are accessible to you, and there are many ways where you can go get them. So the first question is, who has that expertise in-house? Because you might have some people who are not doing the robotics work right now, who might have done in the past, and they could recycle these skills and put them to great use in your factory. Who could grow? So do you have people that are technically savvy, who are interested to learn new skills, new technologies? These first robotics projects can be great opportunities for them to develop their skills, but also increase their engagement within your team. Can we hire somebody? So if robotics is on your strategic roadmap, it might be a good idea to kickstart it with hiring someone who's done some integration in the past. And obviously, you got to be realistic as well. It's not a matter of quality of know-how, but it's also quantity of know-how. So the people that you identify to work on these projects, do they have available bandwidth to work on these projects? So it is definitely worth thinking about the team when you start that kind of project, because again, they might be good to deliver the project, but it might be good to have the team step up. And then in the end, you can decide which way to go on the DIY versus full turnkey solution. So we have various customers. We have tens of thousands of customers. Some of them do it completely by themselves. Some of them do it completely. What they want is a turnkey solution. It really depends on your approach, on your bandwidth, on your expertise. It depends on many different factors. The message there is that there's no right or wrong. So it's really a matter of how to align with your reality. And the great thing, again, is that you have local partners in the Allied group that can really guide you there, assess what is the application, what is the complexity, assess what are the internal skills, and really advise you, hey, with our help as a Robotique distributor, we can help you do it on your own. We're going to support you in these and these and these. We're going to support you in the training, etc. But you can take it on your own. If not, we can refer you to a system integrator who's going to provide more of a turnkey solution. In all cases, I would really encourage you to use this as an opportunity to gain some skill sets in your team. So even if you give the mandate to an external system integrator and they provide a full turnkey solution, I really encourage you to purposefully have your team engage with the system integrator so you can learn along the way for 2 reasons. First, to be able to maintain the solution and improve it afterwards. And also prepare for potentially having a second or a third project, because in most cases, very rarely our customers stop at their first robot. In most cases, they're going to build a second, a fifth, a 10th solution in the future. So that's the first step. So that mantra of first who, then what. But then if we move to the what, if you want to start deploying cobots, you might have different opportunities on the factory floor. So you can identify various ones, and then I really advise you to map where they stand into the complexity versus impact, the 4-quadrant chart. Again, that's an area where the folks in the Allied group can help you out. Cobots are simple for the simple things. Just like any technology, they can become complex for the complex things. So just be aware that it's not a straight line. The easy things are very easy. The complex thing can be very challenging. If you're new to this, I think you got to be realistic, and I'm sure you've integrated the technologies in the past. There are some things you don't know yet. If you have a project that is simple and high impact, it is the sweet spot, obviously. The advice that I give that's a little bit counterintuitive is that if you hesitate between a high impact, more complex, or a lower impact, more simple project, I really encourage you to start in the bottom left quadrant, always with that mindset of a longer term perspective. You want to have a success with the first one. You don't know what you don't know, so you should get started, get a success, and build on it. If you choose the high impact, more complex, it becomes more risky. So more risk of blowing the budget, blowing the schedule, and you even have the risk of having people in the factory say, "Hey, we don't like cobots anymore. The first project was a mess. We don't want to do it again." So have that long-term mindset. Again, have a project, have a success, use it as a way to elevate your team, gain some skill set, and then move on to more complex, more impactful projects later on. And obviously, don't go where there's no value and just high complexity. Cobots are just a means to an end, like any other tool you can use to improve the life in your factory. The second thing, when we talk about scoping the problem, and it comes back to the 3 circles that I've shown earlier, it is very important to understand what's happening in the manual process. So it's very important that you understand what's coming in, what's coming out, what is the process, what's the interface with the other machines, what is the operator doing at that station, and paying attention to it, because there are some things that you might not even notice, or that the operator might not even notice, that might be important when you start designing the solution. So a typical example is, let's say you have parts that are presented randomly like this, or you have a quality inspection, or you have just manual cleanup of a part that's very easy for an operator, but that can be quite challenging for a robot to do because it's changing all the time. So it's important to really understand the manual process before getting too excited with the technology and jumping to the technology solution. And if it's your first project and you don't know what's important in terms of information, I just get the resource from the Allied group, and they're going to support you. They've seen hundreds of projects, and they can really help you capture the right information to scope the problem properly. Moving on to the design of the solution, there are 3 things that you want to avoid in the design phase. The first one is custom engineering. So the cobot industry, and you are particularly, and we're part of that ecosystem, the idea is that we should avoid custom engineering as much as possible, because custom is costly. It takes a lot of time in the design, a lot of potential rework. It makes it more complex to train, to troubleshoot. So there's a lot of ways potentially around the custom engineering. So first advice is avoid custom engineering. And to do this, use standard building block. They're already made to work together. You're going to save a lot of time in designing the solution, but you're also going to save a lot of time down the road in putting them together, programming them, supporting them, training on them, etc. The second thing that you want to avoid is feature creep. So the great thing about robots is that they can do pretty much anything. But the bad thing about robot is that they can do pretty much anything. So it can be tempting while you're in a project to say, hey, we could as well do this. You could add this operation, etc. And if you do this, the complexity is going to creep in. and then it's going to compound, and you come at risk to again blow the schedule and blow the budget. So not only start simple, but keep it simple along the way and avoid feature creep. And the third thing that you want to avoid, obviously, is rework. Rework is a very painful type of waste because you think you've done the work and you think you're close to the conclusion of the project, but yet then you need to start again. So it's very tough on morale and very costly as well. It can really impact the payback period. And the way to avoid rework is to obviously pay a lot of attention in the early steps of the design and even at the scoping of the problem. And also to do a good risk assessment very early on. And again, that's something that your local partner or that we can help do. And this de-risking becomes very easy if you use a standard building blocks, because you've seen the background behind Kale in the introduction. They have all sorts of plug-and-play components already in the lab. So it's very easy for them if you say, oh, I have this, I'm not sure that the vision is going to work. I'm not sure that the tooling is going to work. Well, let's do a test. Let's define what's at risk, what we want to learn from this test. And then if you're using the standard building blocks, very easy, you're going to get those answers. And you're going to clear a lot of these risks. And when you're going to come up with the solution being installed, it's going to work. You won't need to go back to the initial steps of the project. So 3 advice to have a good design of the solution. And again, the people who will provide the solution in the end, will provide all the material, will be either your local distributor or the integrator you will have decided to work with. And then you're going to work at integrating. So when I talk about integrating, what I mean is really installing and programming. So 2 advice there. First advice is make it work. Again, coming back to that advice of feature creep, make sure that it works and have that continuous improvement mindset with the Cobot. The best way that we've seen our customers doing it, they're going to make it work. They're going to have it simple. So what is the minimum version of the robotic cell that can bring value to the business? When it starts bringing value, you start the counter in terms of getting the payback. But as long as it's not working, you're not starting the counter at bringing the payback. So you push that payback time further in the future. So bring it to completion, make it work, even if it's not perfect. And again, because it's a hands-on technology, because it's an accessible technology, you can include it in your continuous improvement. So gradually, you're going to be able to iron out the program and tweak the performance to increase the production of that robotic cell. And the second thing, the nature of Cobot programming, it's a very hands-on. It's a very hands-on skill. So I compare it to playing a sport. So even if Tom Brady comes in a classroom and explain you how to throw the football, you're going to get something out of it. But the reality is, to become great at it, you need to go in the field and practice and do it. And it's the same thing with Cobots. You got to put your hand on it. You got to do it. The value of expertise is very high. So I would really encourage you to have the people you have identified that you want to elevate, that you want to increase their skill set, to carve out some time so they can learn, they can do. Even if you, again, get some help from an external system integrator, make sure that you get your hands on the robot to increase your skill set and increase your autonomy as well when the integrator is done. The last thing that you want to do is call them all the time and be frustrated because the robot is down or because you have a new part to program, for instance. So again, get your hands on the robot and improve that skill set. So that's true in the integration phase. In the operate phase and right before in the training phase, you can definitely leverage the expertise of your local partner. So all of these partners, they offer on-site training and even some sort of coaching to get started with the Cobots. It is a great solution, especially if you are more on the DIY side of the spectrum. And we also offer some self-learning platforms that are very powerful, very up-to-date, lots of great information. The first one is our e-learning platform, where there's a lot of lessons and courses on our products, but also on applications. So remember these 2 blue circles that I talked about. So there are a lot of great lessons there where you can build these skill set at your own pace on demand. And we also have an experts community called DUF where you can ask questions and answer questions of other robotics professionals. So these are two resources that are there. They're on demand, and they're also very powerful that you can really use to build your skill set. So the virtuous cycle that you want to initiate is by targeting that less complex project. You can do more on your own, have a lower cost, have a good ROI, deploy more robots, develop your skills. And obviously, when you have more skills, things become more complex and you can get that flywheel turning. So one robot can have a great impact. Again, you have a payback of 6 to 18 months. After that, the robot is printing you money. But imagine if you have 5 robots, 10 robots, then the impact can be very significant, both on the bottom line, but also on other aspects of your production, like the quality, like the capacity, but also on your team mobilization and team impact. So if you want to get started now, the first step is usually have a good factory walk with your local rep from people in the applied automation group. Depending on where you are in the country, you might go with a virtual factory walk, which is perfectly doable. We've done many over the past year, and I'm sure the folks at Applied did it as well. So if you're new to this, you might have some ideas of where to put cobots to work in your factory. But I would really encourage you to tap into their knowledge because they might have some good advice and good experience to share with you. And if you're not ready to start just now and you're attending the event today because you'd like to or because you're curious, the question that I have for you is, will the labor issues go away? And obviously it won't go away because it's coming from demography, and I don't see kids growing up wishing to do a repetitive task in a factory. And the caveat there is that it's not going away. It is an important problem, but it's not necessarily an urgent problem. So what I advise is, even if you don't get started and start looking at projects right away, I would really encourage you to not automate or to elevate, but do it the other way around. So at least to elevate your knowledge, so eventually you can automate. So Kale talked about the book earlier. So he had one of the first edition. I could recognize the thickness of that edition. There's the final version is on Amazon. It's well rated. It's not commercial. It's really about the process of how to go from I want to deploy robots to I got a productive one. You can also download it for free on leanrobotics.org. So that's one way. If you're not ready to get started with a real project today, that's one concrete step you can take right away in that direction. And obviously, in the end, if you do decide to automate, everybody wins. You win as a business, you win as a manufacturing professional, but you're also developing your team, which is a great thing for them. And obviously, it's going to also be a great thing for you and for the company. You're going to increase engagement. You're going to reduce your hiring challenges, and you're just going to have more fun at doing your job on the factory floor. So that was my message to you. You see my contact information there. Happy to connect and continue the discussion. And I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'll be happy to take any questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Sam. It's always a pleasure to get to hear your review of the tried and true method you've come up with to be able to deploy collaborative robots in the marketplace. One of the questions that we had come up, is there a common denominator on successful first projects? So when someone's looking to go to deploy their first collaborative robot, is there that common thing that stands out that will tend to make it more successful rather than not?
Yeah, well, simplicity definitely is one common denominator. So that was the first advice of really starting simple. So that's one common denominator. Obviously, it has to be aligned with the company strategy as well. So Cobots, it's a mean to an end. It's just a tool, and it has to be aligned with the strategy of the business. So I think these are the two key ingredients: simplicity and alignment with the strategy, alignment with how the management see where the factory operation should go. With these two, you can do a lot of great things, and obviously choosing the right way to do it. So it comes down to that assembling the team. So where are you in the DIY versus turnkey solution spectrum? So making the right decisions there is going to have a big impact on the success of the solution. And for these two, so start simple and decided which way to go, the DIY versus turnkey. I think you should definitely try to leverage the know-how that the Ally Group has built over the years. It can really help you on this question.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I changed camera angles on me. I have here next to me one of your new solutions that you brought to the market. This is your palletizing solution. And over the recent, several months, I would say last 2 years, you've brought to the marketplace complete solutions, such as the palletizer, such as the sander finisher, such as the machine tending co-pilot solutions that you have. Are you seeing this trend of whole solution development being a bigger part of Robotique moving forward versus just an individual product, even though they're wonderful individual products? Do you see more of the solution aspect?
Yes, definitely. Because in the end, if you're in a factory, what you want is really to get the robot to do a job. And if you translate this into the robotics language, it's the application. So it's really a big trend. We understand that every application is going to be different. So if we look at the palletizing, obviously all the boxes are different, material is different, the pallet size might be different, the number of SKUs, etc. So our philosophy is, how do we find the right balance in terms of having a solution that's easy to deploy, but that's also modular and configurable enough so you can easily adapt it to your reality. So it's a mix of building the right solutions with the right tools you can have, having the right software on the flexibility, but it's also bridging the gap between what the product can do and what you need on your factory with some local partners like the folks in the Ally Group. So it's really that combination. What you're buying as an end user is that application solution, but it's also that value-added service that you get locally that's always critical to the success of the project.
All right. It's very apropos that you mentioned the software aspect of it. We've got time for one more question, and this one's centered around software. I know that, or the question came through of, do you develop your own software in-house, or is that something that's done by a third party? Is that the part of the intelligence and secret sauce of Robotique to bring the software to life as well as the physical product?
Yes, definitely. It's that combination. So our engineering group, it's almost half and half. So half hardware, half software. And in the software, we have two subgroups. We have the people really working behind the scene at, for example, in the palletizing, the trajectory generation and the collision avoidance and all more of the robotic stuff. And then we have a group that's really focused on the interface. Something that's very important for us is that you don't necessarily need to learn the language of the robot. The robot should understand the language of the application. So for those of you who've seen those years, the first computer that I had was a Commodore 64. If you wanted to run a software on the Commodore, you had to type some Commodore instruction, load, program, etc. And that's kind of the reality for many instructions of the cobots. But where we see the trend in the industry is turn it around. So a little bit like today, you just tap on the app on your iPhone, it opens. You don't need to learn the language of the iPhone. The iPhone speaks your language. And that's the same thing that we want to do on the software side as well. And the palletizing is a great example. You don't need to learn all the robot language. You just set the box size, the pallet size, and the pattern. And then behind the scene, the program is generated automatically. So that's definitely a big trend. And that's definitely part of the robotic touch. And it comes from developing our own software on top of the tools that you are and other cobot vendors provide to us.
That goes hand in hand with what we experience. We got our palletizing demo here in our automation lab, and we had it running palletized patterns within about 3 hours of it arriving to the dock. So being able to unbox it, install the software right on the teach pendant, answer a few basic questions and get it up and running was very smooth. And it really speaks very highly of the software and hardware work that you put together to make these solutions possible. Well, I see that we're running out of time. And that takes care of the questions that we had in our room. Sam, I'd like to thank you for being online with us and sharing your wisdom with the rest of the group. For everyone who's attending, just to let you know, this event has been recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel. So we'll be posting that later on in case you'd like to watch it again. And if you would like to set up a time with either ourselves with our sister companies, Olympus Controls or Gibson Engineering, or even the automation coaches at Robotique to get into the solution aspect at a deeper level, please reach out to us. We'd love to be able to set up a time to meet with you. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.